The Man in the Rain. If you've ever spoken to someone who has spent time in Thailand, they'll tell you to go in the dry season, not the wet season. Trust me, after what happened to me, you'll understand why. I'm a digital nomad, constantly chasing new horizons while working online. A few weeks ago, my journey brought me to Phuket, Thailand. The wet season promised cheaper rent and fewer tourists. Perfect conditions for focusing on my marketing project. Or so I thought. Phuket was lush and vibrant, but as the wet season rolled on, the skies turned a menacing shade of grey. The streets are often deserted with rain pouring relentlessly, creating a sense of isolation. A couple of days into my stay, I decided to take my scooter up one bay from where I was staying to try out a coffee shop a friend had recommended. About 15 minutes into my ride, the heavens opened up. This was full-on monsoon rain, the kind that hits hard, almost moving sideways with the wind. I was up on the path between two bays, and there was no way I could make it downhill in this rain on two wheels. Luckily, a set of thick trees caught my eye where I could pull in off the road and keep relatively dry. I tucked it as best I could and sat there, scrolling on my phone for about 10 minutes, waiting for the rain to stop. Then a rider came around the corner and pulled up under the trees as well. Even though it was really dark and he had a rain poncho and an open-faced motorcycle helmet on, I instantly noticed he was a foreigner too. "We're lucky to find this spot," I said in a laughing tone. The guy said nothing. He didn't even look at me. It was raining heavily, so I thought he hadn't heard me. "How far did you come from?" I shouted at him. Nothing. It's like he didn't even know I was there. Staring at him in surprise, I noticed more distinguishing features about him. His face was middle-aged, pockmarked from years of skin problems, and a large, prominent scar along his left cheek threw you in. He just sat there, looked like staring at me, but in my direction, as if he was looking at something in the distance, but I couldn't tell what. His unsettling demeanour frightened me deep down inside. He hadn't done anything, but the fact he didn't try to converse or acknowledge me was highly unsettling. He just sat there, motionless. Only about 5 minutes passed and the rain started to settle down. I wouldn't normally chance such a descent while the rain continued at all, but I wanted to get away from this man as soon as I could. I started my descent into the next town. As I approached the bollarn, we could see the headlights of another bike coming up close behind me. It was him. Something told me he might be following me, so I made the decision to add it a few turns, but I didn't need to be sure that he wouldn't follow me anymore. I got around the corner onto a side road and sped away for about 200 metres. As I looked in the mirror, my spine tingled with fear. I could see the headlights of the man turn to where I was. Unnerved and frightened, I turned again onto a smaller road, and just like before, he followed me. I weaved through the back roads of the beach town a few more times, and every time this man turned behind me. To make matters worse, the rain was getting heavier again. In the confusion, I made a horrible mistake. I turned up a small soi. It was a dead end. The man pulled up a little in front of me, about 10 metres or so, I guess. His facial expression was the same as back on the path, cold and motionless. My fight or flight instinct kicked in at this point. "What do you want?" "Leave me alone," I shouted aggressively. The man started to smile, a sinister smile that suggested nothing good was in his twisted mind. Knowing the worst would happen if I stayed, I started to ride past him. At the moment we crossed path, he lunged his arm out and tried to grab mine. In panic, I sped up, skidding as I moved out of his grip. The man fell half off his bike and let go to stabilise himself. I rode as fast as I could in the heavy rain. As I turned onto a bigger street, I saw a restaurant with its lights on, full of people. I pulled in and ran inside to a table of tourists. I asked him if I could sit with him for a while and told them some guy had tried to attack me. Luckily, they obliged my request. Sure enough, a few moments later, the man pulled in opposite the restaurant. Luckily, a few of the men at the table stood up and yelled at him. This seemed to be enough to frighten him away. Once the sun came back out, a few of them escorted me back over the pass to my guest house. I heard he stayed a couple more nights and decided to head up to Bangkok. I couldn't face the thought of bumping into him again. His face still haunts my dreams at night. The thought of what could have happened if I'd stayed on that path a moment longer makes me sick to my stomach.